Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring, let we rule them all. Hope fruit, remember your towel. Get your ulu feathers and your needler guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel if it will get you to count. To the big tank. To the big tank. The Rocky Mountain big tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Alex.
And this is Geek Tank.
Your March-sized podcast.
I'm going to rearrange us.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Ha ha!
Sleight of hand. I got to open up the comments.
Sleet of hand. Sledged of hand.
Yay, we are almost on time. Woohoo!
Yay!
Almost.
Someday we'll get our opening credits, so it's actually the countdown is for when the credits start, as opposed to the countdowns until 1 minute of just silence until the credits start, and then we don't have to guess it when we should start it.
Anyway, I don't know what you guys are talking about. You are all weirdos. I'm just saying. I don't even know why I hang out with you people.
You don't have anything else to do.
That's
don't have
true.
a life.
That is so true. Anyway,
I saw you did some artwork on your card book.
I did. I was working on. I am completely enamored with this new Kamigawa Magic set, which has come out. It is, in my opinion, probably exactly what I was hoping to see Magic do way back in the early days when Alex and I were playing Magic at the Winchells.
Winchells Donuts?
Yep. There was a Winchells on Kipling, and there still is.
No, we used to play about in
30th, 38th, or something like 40th.
I'm pretty sure we used to play at the one over by where Arvada High School is.
Okay, in my head, it has moved.
Yeah, that one hasn't been there for years.
Right, so. That's probably why, because there's still a Winchells over there by where the green
44th and Kipling.
Yeah, the where we used to be on that first Greenwood. And so
whoa. First Greenwood. I thought first Greenwood was like Alameda and Wads.
No. The first Greenwood was at the Camelot Club. Remember? And then
right. Yes, Camelot Club. You're right.
We got asked to leave one night because somebody was shooting outside.
Yeah, there was shooting stuff happening. Yeah.
And so Wheat Ridge Police came over and said, I need you to grab your shoes and your keys and go with us quickly. And they had like shotguns and stuff like that in the background. I'm like,
yeah. That's right.
I
I forgot about the non-home house Greenwoods, just apartment Greenwood.
Because that was 1 and 2. Because we were at the there was for the first one, it was just a solo or like a studio apartment that James and I lived in. And I just lived in his like living room. And then the third one then was the one that was out near Villa Italia.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one was the duplex.
It was a duplex, yep.
And then the fifth one was Greenwood 5, the last of the Greenwood stations. So, which existed where everybody knows it. Although Troy came to G4. That's when he first met us, was at G4. So
that was the duplex.
That was the duplex.
Over at 38th and Kipling.
Yeah, but Alex has been playing Magic with us literally since that first Greenwood. Because I remember Alex, me, James, and I think we even got Shane into it for a while. But then Shane gave up on it because he didn't like it as
Smart
much.
man.
Right? Imagine the amount of money we have spent on this. Well,
was that a house before the duplex?
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's right. There was a house.
The one by Villa Italia was a house.
The house on Dudley Street.
Because like within a span of like a week to a month, I remember you guys moving shortly after I'd been to that place. Right. Because that was the time I'd accidentally walked into the house next door and luckily didn't get shot because nobody was there. Or at least nobody was in the living room.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I remember you guys saying, we leave the front door open, just come in. And I pulled up thinking I was walking in the right house, and it was only like my second or third time there. Completely confident I had the right house. I opened up the door and stepped in. I was like, this is not the right place. This living room does not look correct. And it's dead silent. So I very slowly shut the door and backed out. And I'm like, let's try the one over there.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, Magic.
Magic. So we Troy and I know have been playing Magic since G4, but Alex and I have been playing Magic since long before that.
Yeah, I was playing Magic
Yeah.
before I moved to Colorado.
Yeah, I got into Magic in
Well, you didn't play it with
94
me before you moved to Colorado. I didn't fly out to Louisville to play Magic with you.
And that's why you suck at Magic.
Right?
In any
Totally
case,
why I
Alex was
suck at
talking about
Magic.
Magic and you cut
Sorry,
him off.
Magic. Sorry, Alex.
How dare you, sir? No, I was just saying that I've been playing since '94. I took a break in the early aughts for a few years, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I seem to think that you and I started at the same ish time, which was Dark Antiquities, Dark Arabian Nights, right in there.
Yeah, so I got in at Revised right before Legends hit.
That's it. Yeah, because
so I was trading for Arabian Nights and Antiquities and Unlimiteds and betas and stuff.
Right. I seem to, because I remember that was the first time that I got my Elves of the Deep Shadow cards.
That's
and
from the
they
Dark.
were dark, and since they were dark, we were all like amazed that I had managed to get dark cards. I seem to remember that. It was like part of the, hey, it's hard to get dark anymore because they're going out of style or whatever. And then Ice Age hit, and we got like a complete different run of things and stuff. So I seem to, this is back in the days when, a set would release, and then a few months later they were running out of cards. So because they didn't print a lot of them back then like they do now, they don't run for a year. I'm not worried about filling out my Kamigawa set because it'll be running for the next year, and so I can just keep picking up cards for a while.
Yeah, it'll be standard legal for a couple years.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool and neat. But yeah, so I hang out on Tuesday nights with a bunch of buddies who we all just draw, but everybody plays Magic in this group, and my kid goes with me, and so now my kid has a standard deck that he's been building and working on, and he plays with the guys on Tuesday nights when we're all together, which is good because we're kind of trying to teach him to win gracefully and not get mad and not get very upset. And he's doing a very good job of it. So I've been pretty proud of him because at some point in time, I want him to join the rest of our group. But our group's pretty strict about playing well and nice and, not being a jerk. And so it's difficult. And I'm, so it's kind of one of those things that I want him to kind of practice a little bit. And my art friend buddies, if things kind of go south, we all just pull out our sketchbooks and go back to work drawing. So, give him time to cool down, give him time to kind of recoup and stuff like that. But he's been recently doing really well. His most recent deck is probably a little mana light, and so he keeps getting kind of either mana flood or mana screw, one of the two. So, but it's interesting. So I've got a kid who's into Magic. I know all three of us are dads. I know this because I've met all your children. Anyway, what do we think about that? Getting our kids into Magic, getting our kids into whatever it is we're into. What do we think about that?
Is Nova into Magic?
No,
I didn't think so. I mean, it's not like I hang out with her. Hey, Brent. I never really got the impression that something about the structure, not the structure so much, but just the appeal of Magic seemed like it would, that she's better than that. I guess would be a way to put it.
Right. Yeah, no,
I
I
feel
don't.
called out.
Yes.
We're all into it. No, I think that she probably isn't into it so much because she doesn't like to play competitive games.
Right.
She likes to play cooperative games.
I don't blame her.
So sometimes we do, like, if we're playing video games, sometimes we do it old school where it's like, okay, I'm playing for a minute, now you play for a minute, now you play back in a minute, that kind of thing. Or we'll play games that are strictly cooperative. We're both on the screen doing something. And one thing I do like about this modern board gaming space, that not only there are a lot of cooperative board games, there are actually more and more cooperative kids games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that I've played, at least with some of your mentioned, things like Outfoxed and Kraken Attack and Zombie Kids and stuff like that, which are just really fun. I have I'm not going to turn my camera around, but I have, I think, up to maybe I'm about a year behind, but I've got like every My Little Pony Friendship is Magic role-playing game source.
Right.
For when I try to get Nova into role-playing. I also got like No Thank You Evil and stuff like that, because that's
I was about to mention
storytelling.
I was about to
I've
mention
been
no thank
really
you.
wanting to get Nova and Kai to work on the Magical Kitties Save the Universe, which I think would fit. I mean, Kai likes it because it's a kiddie game, but I think that it's cooperative and it's basic role playing. I mean, like, they have 3 stats, and you draw your cards. You draw cards to get traits. So there's a deck of cards that you draw, and that gives your cat a trait, and you can, you don't have to stay with it. You can draw a card and then say, I don't like this, I want to do a different one, and draw another card. But it helps them develop traits and stuff like that. So they've got skills, but the skills are really basic. And so I really enjoy it. I've been meaning to try to get Nova and Kai into that, because we're close, and that could be something that they could do while we're playing our D&D game, but you can't force it. Michael's right.
Yeah,
you can't force it if they're not going to. By the way,
you want to say no, you can't play this, because then it makes them want to play it.
Oh,
right, there you go. You're not allowed to play these games that we bought for you specifically.
Oh, wait, I see Michael is last name Knight. Is that the Hoff?
That is our Michael Knight. Yes,
that's our.
That is the Michael Knight out of our group.
A name I have not heard in quite some time.
Yes. Nick is very similar to Nova in that he's not at all into the competitive aspect of board games and such, which he loves chess, but he doesn't love the competitiveness aspect, which is really interesting, because he was doing chess tournaments for a while, and he did really well, but the winning wasn't appealing to him. I mean, not like losing is appealing to him either, but it's just that whole aspect. And so, and Magic is very much, unless you're doing something like Generals or Arch Nemesis, it's all free-form melee. And then it's for a short amount of time. Victor was a little bit into Magic, and Taryn more so for the artwork, I think, than anything else. But they never really jumped into it. So I don't see my kids ever necessarily going to that. Pokemon, the card game, Taryn really likes a lot, and he likes building the decks more than he does playing the game.
Right. I feel like my kid's really into the competitiveness to some degree. Yeah. So Michael's talking to you. I don't know if you can see.
I waved.
Okay, gotcha. I feel like Kai is sort of the opinion that the competitiveness is a thing he wants to get into, but he's having a hard time with, what do I do if I lose? And so that's a big issue that I'm working with right now. But he likes it. He likes it a lot. more importantly, it is sort of a family game because my wife also plays. And so that's a thing where, you know, like we were just playing Sunday night. And so it's like a family function for us. I was making a joke that it was family night magic.
He might still be a few years away from this, but one thing to try to push is when he wins, you can ask the question of what did you learn from that game?
Right.
And odds are it's going to be very little because he won. Whereas if you lose, do you see where the missteps were taken? Were there missteps taken? Was it purely just luck of which cards came up against which cards? And it's because, I mean, that's the level I'm at it was years ago when I played. It's been over a couple of years since I last played. But it was being able to spot when did I make a mistake that I actually had control over how the outcome went, as opposed to it's not their cards versus my cards. It's like, oh, this choice would have been a better choice within my power to make.
Right.
And it's being able to think on that level is what I think will ultimately make you a better player, because then will be in practice of knowing, oh, don't cast your instant until you have to, type thing.
Yeah, tactics. I feel like we were starting to kind of bridge into tactics a little Sunday night, last night, which seems like it was 100 years ago, but really was just last night. We were bridging into the tactics of, he was not putting the land down until the end of the turn. And we were like, okay, you can do that as a tactical maneuver, but you probably want to do that at the beginning of the turn so you can use the mana. And it's not that he hadn't thought of that necessarily. He just was being kind of lazy about it. And we're like, okay, but, do it tactically, do things tactically.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the old classic cheats that a person got caught out in like a big tournament, like for lots of money, was doing the play the land right up in the front, do a whole bunch of stuff on their turn, and then try to play another land and say they hadn't played a land yet.
Right.
And there's like videos on YouTube of this of people getting caught doing that in tournaments. Yep. And so you don't want to accidentally cheat. Right, because then it makes you look bad. If the person doesn't know who you are, they don't know that it was an accident. They could think it was intentional.
Yeah.
Anything you do, you should know the reason why you're doing it for when you're doing it in Magic. So am I playing my land now, or am I not going to have any use for it until the end of my turn anyway? So I'm just going to hang on to it to not let my opponent be able to figure out how many resources I have.
Exactly. It's interesting. Because I think one of the things that fascinates me is we've all been friends for a very, very long time.
Liar.
Since, some of us, like Alex and
I know.
I have been friends with Alex since he was literally a kid. You know what I mean? You were literally, and I wasn't much older than you at all. Although it seemed like it back then, but now it's like...
Of course, in my mind, it's like Muppet Babies. You guys are running around in diapers.
Right. But it's like you think about that, and we think about now, here we are, we have families of our own and stuff like that. And we were so radically different than our parents. Like my mom, followed a good deal of what I was doing, but Magic she couldn't get it. She didn't grasp it. It was very difficult for her to understand just the collectible card game aspect of it. To her, it seemed like we just kept going out and getting another 52 cards of a normal deck and then stacking them together. And she couldn't figure out why we would need, 22 ace of clubs. What was the point of that? In her mind's eye, she really just couldn't grasp the concept of it, because to her, she had played bridge with her parents and got into poker with later on, as everybody else did in her generation. But this was completely radically different. And it was a different concept and it was a different design, but it really did mess with her world. Like she couldn't figure it out. She didn't know what was going on.
Luckily, my mom knew nothing of Magic. And if she did, she would have been trying to push to get me to buy the Redemption cards. I don't know if anybody ever saw those or know of those, but Redemption was the extremely religious version of Magic the Gathering. where they tried to create cards based off of stuff in the Bible, but it was the PG-13 version of the Bible, not the
Right. Not
what
the
we
real
would have
version
done
of the
if it's
Bible.
like if somebody said, "Hey, go make a Magic the Gathering game, but based off the Bible," we would have had
We would have had a
hardcore stuff
blast
in
with
it.
that. Imagine what we would have done with that.
But yeah, it's called Redemption, and of course, it did as well as you would think it would do, and bombed really bad.
Bombed really bad, yeah.
But it's but I'm sure she would have been sending me packs of those things if she would have known of its existence, trying to like convert me over to that card game instead of Magic.
Right.
'Cause
Play this instead. It's not full of demons and evil.
It didn't take long for them to have their whole issues with Magic, where they had to remove the pentagram from the back of Unholy Strength, and that they started having to redo the artwork and stuff. I don't know how closely you followed it back in the day, Guy, or not related.
Guess
to the
not.
art. But yeah, they.
I wonder if I have any Unholy Strings with pentagrams in them now.
Probably because you started playing back when they existed.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a box now where we just audited all of our cards 2 weeks ago and pulled everything apart, and I pulled all of the things that were pre-2000 out and put them in a box by themselves, because a good portion of those were what's left of my creepy crawly deck and what's left of my original all white deck that I used to fight Alex with back in the old days of yore. And there are still pieces of that left. And I was like, oh man, they're probably not worth anything. They're in pretty bad shape, but it's worth something to me.
Well, you never know. I was completely surprised at the stuff that has jumped in price. And this is like, gosh, what, 10, 15 years ago, back when Commander started to hit big.
Right.
And that's what pulled me back into Magic after being out for years. And I went to Atomic Games run by Wes. And I was like, hey, can you give me some advice on this deck I'm trying to put together? And he's going through it. And I want to say it was not Strip Mine, but the other version of Strip Mine that was the newer version, Wasteland. But he's like, hey, these are like $100 cards. I'm like, no, they're not. They're like $5 cards. What do you say? No, they're $100 cards. And sure enough, it's one of those things where when they reprint a card, depending on what cycle it's in, all of a sudden its value jumps up because it's now legal in certain formats.
Right.
So you'd be surprised at what cards you might have that could be worth something, because it's.
I run Strip Mines in all of my decks because
Strip Mines aren't worth what Wastelands are worth, unless if they change it.
You said it. I just remembered that last night I was like, it was actually funny because Mariah was playing her Wolf deck and she put out some land that did something, and I was like, I don't have any land destruction in my deck. And then I drew a Strip Mine. I was like, oh, hey. And I got to Johnny at the one thing, because like it's one thing I always do in my deck building is I just put in one or two random things just in case something happens, and it gives me an option of something weird.
It brings up a whole other rabbit hole, is building decks. Like, what point is your deck not fun to play against?
Yeah.
Because if you make an all land destruction deck, that's going to get
fun.
It's going to be boring after the first couple of games, because the person you're playing against is going to go, I've seen what your deck can do. It does its trick really well.
That's why I like Big Black. One of Alex's best famous decks was Big Black.
Do you have a card estimate total of that thing?
Oh, it was several thousand cards. At this point, I have a box. It's smaller than it used to be, because Big Black used to be in this box.
Yes, it did. And shuffling it took him like a week.
So I decided that if I'm going to redo Big Black, I'm going to do it in a format called Canadian Highlander, which is a point-based system where you have basically like 10 points, and if you have
copy and kill deck.
If you have the you can have high-powered cards in it, but those all cost points. So you can't have like the complete set of Moxen or anything like that. It goes over but you get 10 points for every 100 cards in the deck. So if you want, basically it's like a kind of more of a competitive. It's a little bit more competitive, like CEDH. But I was figuring that I would have, this is Big Black as it is now as a Highlander deck, so one ofs. And I'll go through it and keep on.
Does that type of card construction still require a maximum of 4 of any one card?
No, Highlander's one-ofs.
Oh, that's right.
Can only
So
be one.
It's like
only
it's
one.
like EDH
Okay.
in that instance.
So regardless of what like some cards are obviously going to be 0, but you're only going to get 1 of each of those 0 cards.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Most cards are 0. The vast
Okay.
majority of cards
Gotcha.
are 0. But no, so yeah, when it comes to what's fun or not, it depends on your meta and
Mhm.
depends on the people you play with. I guess I should say it's context sensitive. Like
Yes.
when I made, I love making theme decks.
Me too.
And so, but back when what's it called, Adventurers Quarter was open, I was just getting back into Magic. I'd made my first EDH deck, and I was like, okay, well, I want to. And the guy, what was his name? Something with a J. And he would then,
Yeah, I remember him.
he was having an EDH tournament, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to enter this tournament. But because I'm going to a tournament, context is key. So I took out, so I took my deck, took out some of the more thematic elements. I think I even borrowed some cards from you, Troy. There's cards I didn't have at the time.
Might have.
I'm like, I'd like to have a few things here because I mean, I can, like, I wasn't on like the pro tour or anything, but I used to go to tournaments and do decently well most of the time. And so I know I got that mindset too. And so I was like, okay, well, let's take all this stuff out. Let's put these things in. Let's really tighten this up. And I actually won that tournament. But then as soon as it was done, like, here's your cards, Troy.
Yeah.
Here's the really effective things I took out. I'm going to put back in my thematic stuff.
Right.
And go from there. And so I actually have I do have decks that are more competitive minded in the formats I play, and more, I guess, more fun minded. Like here's my Borg deck.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my
but your idea of fun sometimes varies, and that's something that I think is important, because bringing us kind of back to our kids and things like that. If I were to call, I mean, you aren't as spiky as you used to be, but you are the spikiest of our players.
I realize we should back up a little bit because we've thrown out like 4 terms now without any explanation.
Without Timmy's.
So backing up to
Timmy Johnny Spike things, because I've been trying to figure out what Timmy's were.
Okay, but for reference to deck building size, since some people might not know anything about Magic or very little about Magic, and Alex's giant 1,000 card deck might mean nothing to them. Normally, your minimum deck size is going to be 60 in a deck, and you want to try to keep your deck to its minimum size to increase your odds of it functioning properly, getting the cards you want. The more cards you put into it, the less likely you're going to get the specific cards that you're after. So once you go into the thousands of cards, you're now very much playing with the idea of randomness.
Which is why I liked it, because I would get, when I played you, anything could happen. It would kill me or it wouldn't kill me. And if it killed me, sometimes it would kill me in fascinating and interesting ways, which was fun, and things like that. And for moms out there, they're all different cards. So we had a limit of 4 cards each.
So before we get there, and of course meta, I think when you described it as just context, that's a really good way of describing what meta is. Meta meaning, what is the people in your area playing? So if they're all playing red and you want to counter red, then you're going to take a deck that mostly deals with red cards, because that's what everybody in your area is playing. So if you're trying to win, so there's meta. And then now Timmy Johnny Spike, one of the things that made Magic so popular and keeps it so popular is they figured out how to keep it above the bubble and keep it interesting. And the way they did that is they figured out their 3 primary clients, their personalities. And so that's where you get the Timmy, the Johnny, and Spike. In simplest terms, Timmy is an aspect of you when you like to play that really taps into the child. You like to play with toys. You like to stick Godzilla out there and smash a city. You like big giant monsters that just smash things. You like the showmanship of it in that aspect of the. So you're probably going to play green with like a 10/10 creature, because that's a fun aspect that you get out of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Johnny is the creative gamer, who likes to figure out the Rube Goldberg combinations. Like, if I play this card, it causes this effect to go off, which causes this effect to go off, which causes this effect to go off. And so they love these high
Rube Goldberg
synergy,
machines.
multiple synergy pieces moving stuff, because it demonstrates their cleverness of how they're able to think ahead and put together things like that. And then Spike is the person who likes to win, who will win by whatever method will get him to winning fastest. And most people who will actually cheat at a game, they're more of a Spike, because they've foregone
Alex,
the
I mean,
aspect.
it's
Alex
you.
doesn't cheat.
He doesn't
What are you
cheat.
talking about?
You just
but
said
no-
cheater, and I just said Alex was a Spike. So I was like,
but yeah,
Alex is
Prove
the
it.
most honorable player. we have.
not all Spikes
So
are
it's funny.
cheaters, but I would say all cheaters are Spikes. But
Probably true.
Sonny, our friend Sonny, he's a Spike. He played to win.
Pure Spike.
It'd be like I'm going to build the deck that will win, because fun is not that. Winning is the fun. If I'm not winning, I'm not having fun. And most people are some combination of the three. Very few people care absolutely nothing if they win. Most people have at least some tiny aspect, because that is the goal of the game, is to win.
To win. Sure.
Otherwise, why put land in your deck if you don't care about winning? But that's what Timmy Johnny Spikes are. Timmy, I'm more of a Timmy, and that shows in like the fact that I like playing games with miniatures. I like moving little pictures on the table. And that,
I'm a Timmy Johnny combo, definitely.
They did elaborate on that more, and I don't have the other three subsets, but there are three subsets.
Yeah, there's subsets to them, and yeah, it's like, to me, it depends on my mood. It's really like, since I wanted to quote unquote spike a tournament, I did everything I could to spike that tournament. But I think nowadays I'm more of my spike subcategory is perfect play. Like I don't mind losing necessarily, but I like to play as perfectly as I can. The information that my opponent is giving me, and what I know about my deck, their play style, their deck, and things, I like to make the best decision. And sometimes you're still going to lose, because that's variance. That's what's going to happen. It's the randomness of the game.
I think my kiddo is also in the perfect play Spike zone, because that's what makes him mostly frustrated. Is not losing outright, but screwing up. That's what makes him the maddest. And so when he had last night, he had a creature out on the table and misread it, and could have attacked in a phase, didn't attack, should have attacked, got wiped out from the game, and was very mad at himself for not reading the card, which would have allowed him to win.
Right.
So that makes him more stressed out than just winning outright, or losing, even, for that matter. He doesn't mind losing as long as it wasn't stupid.
Yep.
And I have to admit, the same thing goes for me to some degree. One of the reasons why I get frustrated with so many of the role-playing games that we have is I've got so many game rules floating around in my head now, I can't remember how to do all of the things. And so it's actually why I asked you, Alex, to back off on the pushing me whenever I don't remember the rules and stuff like that, because it's already frustrating. I can't remember that this rule was that rule, or that rule was this rule, or how to use the stupid magic system in D&D, which is already really complex and bizarre in the first place. I don't need it compounded. So tend to just say it's not a matter of me being stupid. It's a matter of 2 days before I was reading Palladium's rule systems, because I just do that for fun. And now I've forgotten totally why I don't have MDC damage going on in this game, and I'm like, so that's, but I understand. I'm sorry. I completely didn't mean to cut you off. I just building off. Please continue.
Well, yeah. As far as our D&D game is concerned, we need to go over the magic system with you to make sure you're solid on it, since you're playing a character who casts. We also need to do an audit of a couple of characters, make sure that they did all the things that they could do. But no, there's also another type of, to bring it back to magic, another type of
bring it back to magic, which is what we're talking
player
about.
is, most of the people who are in this group do play, but they're the ones who brought up a different format called and I've never built a deck in it, so I'm gonna probably get it wrong. It's named like Artist Constructed. So it's a 60 card deck with sideboard. Every single card has to be by the same artist.
Oh my God.
I assume excluding dual lands. I mean, not dual lands, basic lands.
No.
Oh, basic lands have to be by the artist.
Yes.
Damn.
Not every artist has done lands.
Correct. And so when the announcement happens that these like this set's going to have lands by two artists that have never done lands before, so everyone's like, "Woo! What else can we build? What color are those lands? What color cards have those artists done already?" And but that group is called the Vorthos, and the Vorthos really care about the art and really care about the lore of Magic. And so there are lots of, there's lots of articles and blogs and podcasts about just catering to Vorthos players.
I think I border Vorthos. I feel it. I feel like I'm bordering that because I'm really into the lore of Kamigawa. I've never heard of that before.
When Alex and I met, there's this cool little shop called the Neutral Zone, and we were playing Magic there. And the cool thing about that, and of course I can't remember the guy's name that ran it, he would put together.
His name was Jason Alexander, if I'm not mistaken.
Went on to be a great actor.
Right? Who knew?
Cool. He put together these really out of the box rules for Magic tournaments, and I really loved that. And this was back when he said the big deck tournament, and you were thinking big deck, but he's just over 100 cards, and this was pre Commander days, so 100 deck or more cards was big to most people for decks then. He did this other tournament where it was everything in your deck had to be 3 mana casting cost or less, and he did the reverse of that. Everything had to be 4 mana casting costs or more. So he had these really neat ideas that made people have to give up their playing the same deck every time or trying to reconstruct the deck that's winning at the moment things. And so the Vorthos is kind of, I like that in that it forces people to have to work outside of the, well, here's the formula that works for building a deck, so follow this formula.
Yeah, the D&D cards were pretty cool. And the Kamigawa, they've done Magic's take on Cyberpunk, and the next set coming out, I think, is a Crime Lord city type of stuff. And so it's all about, that's about expanding the brand, getting more people into it, getting people who don't normally play Magic or who used to play Magic to go, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. And because Wizards is a for-profit company, they want to make money, and so they're using those things to expand their market.
Speaking of for-profit, we should mention our sponsors.
Let's mention our sponsors while we're here. I'll bring up the brands. Here we go. All right. Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, and Your Mom.
And Kieran Games, by the way, they do deal in Magic the Gathering cards, so they definitely contact them if you're looking for that. Our friend June, in fact, bought a couple of packs of Magic stuff from Chris back when I was buying a bunch of miniatures not too long ago from him.
And he's really good, and he's just a nice guy. I really like him.
Definitely.
So
well, if we didn't like him, we
wouldn't be sponsoring him, because actually it's not like we're in this for the money. So we can actually
the money helps.
We're not sponsoring you,
but yeah, we were very appreciative of the money.
We love the money, and it's great because it allows us to do things.
But we will not compromise for them.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice to be in that position where we don't have to compromise. We can only sponsor the people we really like. And
you mean accept sponsors of the people that we really like? Yeah. Are we? Because we're not sponsoring them; they're sponsoring us.
Yes. Well, sponsor the sponsors. Sponsoring the sponsors. That's what we're doing. We're
help them get through the 13 steps.
Right. Okay. It's totally what's happening.
All right.
So one of the things that is interesting about this discussion that we've kind of tripped into is you were talking about different play styles and different things that have gone on. And one of the things that we've talked about is how play styles have changed. I've been playing Magic with you, Alex, for a quarter century. And it occurs to me that I have observed a very interesting growth and change in your play style. Um, like it's very different now than it was in 1994. And that's a something I didn't expect to see. Not in you, just in general. When you're 20 something and you're playing the thing or doing the thing or whatever, you don't think about what it's going to be like in 30 years. And I keep thinking about that with the older D&D players who've been in since the 70s, since long before I was around, right? Since they've been in since the first D&D was released. And they're still playing now as reasonably older people now. They're in their 60s or their 70s and they're playing still D&D. And I keep thinking, wow, you've watched, an entire arc of life literally, and probably even seen characters that have traveled with them through this entire time. And I find the storytelling aspect of that to be fascinating. Um, Not just I've been playing against you two for a quarter century and how that's changed, but the fact that we all have these legendary decks that we talk about, your big black deck, your nightmare deck, things like that were notorious. Sarah Porter, one of our friends, came over a couple of months ago or 3 months ago to a party at Troy's house, and Magic was there, so she brought her Magic deck. It hasn't changed since the days that we played in the 90s. So she's hauling out Sarah Angels and things like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen these cards. And she's like, well, I've just never changed it. I just put it on a shelf. And every time we play Magic, I bring it down and play it. And it's just the way it goes. And so she's literally playing the same deck she built in probably 1996 or 1997. And it's just the same critter. And that's fascinating to me. And I was like, this is like a blast from the past, because many of my decks have obviously played that deck because Sarah's been part of our group forever and a day. So it's a thing. I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by a lot of the aspects that we've got going on, not just the game, but how it affects us as people. We're talking about our kids being in these things. We're talking about playing for a quarter century. We'll be playing it in the old folks' home. That kind of stuff.
One of our viewers asked if the D&D set was any good. I didn't buy any. In fact, the one of the silver linings to COVID, if there was any, is it saved me a lot of money in Magic cards, because I kind of broke my habit of wanting to collect them. Not that I was a big collector to begin with, but I was collecting all of the commander sets.
Yep.
Because they're pretty solid. So it's like, without fail, I would buy the next commander set that came out. When COVID hit and we stopped playing in person, I kind of lost my desire to buy Magic cards and haven't gotten it back. And I'm not seeking to get it back either. So I haven't bought the D&D cards, so I have no idea if the D&D cards are any good or not. Did either of you get this?
Would you like some Magic cards? I've got them on sale. First it's free.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's all about context. Like, do you think that, do you want them to be good, as in powerful in the meta for standard? Yeah, kind of. Do you mean good as in you can totally have play a deck with just Orden and Beholders in it? Hell yeah.
It seems great for flavor.
Yeah, it's pretty flavorful. It's they have some alternate art treatments that are like the old Monster Manual books from way back.
That's awesome.
There is a dice rolling mechanic. There's a mechanic of entering into the dungeon, which is a little bit underpowered, but it is, your results may vary on whether you think it's good or not. I would recommend that if you wanted to get into it at all, go onto the web, see if they're yes. Do you roll a d20?
Go figure.
For some of the cards in the D&D set. So I would recommend that you go online, look at the different what is called officially Commander, which I've been referring to as EDH, which was the unofficial name before it got picked up by Wizards of the Coast. I would look up to see what Commander decks are available for the D&D set, and I think they're coming out with another one later this year that deals with Baldur's Gate. But I would look at those, see which one kind of matches what your playstyle is or what the creatures you want in it and stuff, and pick that up. You can usually find them for, if they didn't take off, for pretty cheap, like $20-$30, you know. And then you'll have a functional deck that you can play with and kind of, or even just look at the cards and have fun with. The EDH Commander format is 100 card decks. There's some deck building rules. You can find them online, but it is also a more social political game because it's usually four-player free-for-alls around the table. And so you have to do like, can anybody stop that? If not, they win. Okay, well, I can stop it, but you better not attack me for 2 turns. Well, you know, make those kinds of deals. It's a fun format, and that's what I mostly construct in now. Yeah.
And with Commander, it's not necessarily the format's not compatible against regular or standard decks because you're not, unless if the people you're playing against are cool with it. If someone's playing a standard 60 card deck and you wanted to get out your Commander deck, usually they don't want to let you start with the 40 life and have your Commander in a Commander zone because that kind of throws the balance off.
Right.
Commander decks are meant to be played against other Commander decks within the Commander format. You can shuffle your Commander into your deck and play it as a regular deck, but because it is a one of only anything in the deck, it's much harder to play that way.
Doesn't play as well. Yeah.
But Commander's pretty popular, at least last time I looked. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem finding other people who are willing to play Commander games against you.
And, it is the most popular Magic the Gathering format. Period.
So,
as told by Wizards of the Coast and what they've shared of their marketing intel. Yeah.
I am loath to ask this question because I know I'm going to get an answer. I've noticed that somewhere along the line, a couple of nights ago, when we were playing, we were talking about Commander decks, and you seemed very insistent on calling them EDH. Is there a reason why Commander is, or is that just an Alexism being Alex?
That's just me being stubborn. Because I mean,
it came across to me as more of hey, we shouldn't be calling it Commander, we should call it EDH, as opposed to I just call it EDH. You can call it Commander. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we all know what we're talking about. But yeah, EDH stands for Elder Dragon Highlander. It was a fan made format. It was made by some judges after some tournament, and they were like, "Hey, let's make this." And this is back when there were only 5 Elder Dragons. They were all from Legends and Chronicles. And so you had to play one of those Elder Dragons as your general.
Commander. Oh yeah.
And then all the deck building rules therein came about. But I just call it EDH because I think it's better. I think it sounds better than Commander.
As long as there wasn't and anybody who truly is or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand that my affect
behind it, or if this was
a thing. I understand that my affect is sort of like I do things the right way, and everyone else can go pound some sand.
There is sort of that.
It's gotten less over the years, but it's still there.
It has.
But no, it's just that and the reason why it's not called EDH by Wizards, this is Elder Dragon Highlander. Hasbro/Wizards does not own the copyright or intellectual property rights to Highlander, the movie, right, which is what it was named after.
Yeah, because there can only be one.
There can only be one.
Like, we gotta. It's not a general. It's a commander, and it's a command zone, and that's the name of the format.
Yes. Don't sue us.
Which that actually that's cool. I can't knock that.
Kind of like stick shift versus manual.
Yeah.
Is it a stick shift or is it a manual? Yes.
Those are different things.
Are they? A manual car is it not?
I guess not. Yeah, I'm high.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm like trying to figure out
EDH and Commander. It's two different
Yeah,
names for the same thing.
I was just curious. I noticed that like one of the decks of cards that I pulled out had an extra card in it that was some other interesting variant on Magic. I'm noticing a lot of variants on Magic. Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're putting
Wizards
cards in now, which is different variants, and I find
Yeah.
that fascinating.
Yeah, one thing that Wizards has been doing, or did for several years, is that they would try to do another kind of change on Magic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Arch Enemy comes from. That's where Plane Chase comes from.
Right.
But Commander has gotten so popular that they don't really do that as much as they used to. They did a couple kind of like, here is this set of decks, and you can totally play them against each other. Isn't that cool? They've done that a few times, including bringing back Arch Enemy for one thing with the Nicol Bolas. But yeah, it's they're just trying to see what works, what makes people want to play, what makes people want to spend money.
Right.
Yeah,
True, it sticks.
What brought me back with Commander was the fact that it had a way more forgiving banned list and restricted list, and that meant all of these cards that other people felt would be too powerful for me to include in a deck that I built are now all of a sudden legal. And so I'm like, oh, cool! I can just play with the cards I already have then.
Yeah, and there's definitely power levels within Commander that you're supposed to kind of like discuss with the play group, especially amongst strangers. There's also C. It's the format is named CEDH, competitive Elder Dragon Highlander, which is 1v1, and it's mostly combo-tastic. I have a CDH deck that probably is not up to snuff for it to actually compete, but it's like, I got one. I made it. I like it. But then you're looking at what was I thinking of? We're talking about that. Done with that. Forgot. No biggie.
Have you played the Magic the Gathering Heroes of the Dominaria board game? Dominaria.
It's pronounced Dominaria.
Dominaria. Have you played that?
We're all wrong. That's awesome.
I haven't played it. Have you played that, Alex?
I have not.
Okay.
I believe we have a copy here.
You do? It's a box board game.
Yeah.
You do have a copy of that?
Bought it for...
Would not be me.
Okay.
You're talking about the Hero. You're talking about the HeroScape game.
Yes, I am.
That's not the same thing. I was going to get to that though.
No,
so yeah, the Heroes of Dominaria are, from what I know of, it didn't do so great, but it tried to combine a board map with moving around your figures and then initiating Magic the Gathering card games. Is that? I might be thinking. No, I'm thinking of a different thing. There's actually multiple things. That's not what this one is. Okay, so this one's different. On top of that, never mind. There was one where it came with pre-built decks. There's like a pirate deck, a dinosaur deck, and some other decks, and then it had what looked like Settlers of Catan pieces. And so you're exploring the map, and it would trigger battles over territory. But I hadn't played it. I thought it was interesting with some of the other directions they were trying to take Magic, and now there's also this board game. And then way back when Hasbro owned HeroScape, which was a fantastic miniature game, they sold it HeroScape to Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast had owned Dungeons and Dragons at the time, so they started making a Dungeons and Dragons crossover into HeroScape.
Right.
And then it pretty much crashed and burned with that. And just in its final, after a few years, Magic the Gathering released Planeswalker, not HeroScape, but clearly HeroScape. It was the exact same dice mechanic.
Planeswalker TM.
Yeah, the exact same stats on the cards. They didn't call it HeroScape, but it's 100% HeroScape compatible. And that did really bad because the cool thing about HeroScape is it had all these nifty little 3D terrain pieces for building your map. The Magic version was just a flat cardboard map with like one piece of terrain that came with it. It's like, sorry guys, you tried to save money on plastic, but it's not going to sell.
And it didn't.
No, it didn't. That's why I have so many copies of it, because I found them for like $5 each. So I'm like, I'd like a Jace miniature I can incorporate into my HeroScape games.
Sure. But you're still using like all the HeroScape.
I've got more Heroes. I've got more HeroScape stuff than you have plastic spaceships.
It's true.
It's because I bought Dan's set. I bought Scott's set. I bought some other third person who I can't remember, Bob. I think it was Bob's. I bought like everybody's collections because they're like, I don't want it anymore. I'm like, sold.
Right.
So
Makes
my
sense.
one of my goals is to, from like one side of my basement to the other side, build starting the Shire all the way to Mount Doom, just all in Heroescape pieces, because there's a lava set, there's an ice set, there's a jungle set. So it's like I could build the entire quest of the hobbits to Mount Doom.
I gotta admit that would be kick butt.
Yeah. So at some point, whenever I get my basement cleaned up enough, I'm going to try to do that.
I'm worried about that because I think your basement getting cleaned up is like our basement getting cleaned up. It will happen shortly after we die. I feel like that's what's going to happen. So.
Who knows? Any case, Magic the Gathering, send us free cards because we just talked about your stuff for an hour.
Right?
Oh, that ain't happening.
Yeah, no, it's not happening. You have to have like over thousands of viewers, and then they'll send you free stuff, and you have to say nice stuff about it. You can't give honest opinions
Right.
if they're not nice. If it's not a nice honest opinion, you can't do it.
Yeah, for anybody looking to get back into Magic, the biggest YouTuber about Magic the Gathering is a guy named, I think it's Brian.
Yeah.
If you YouTube search for Tolarian Community College, he does a lot of stuff about. He does deck techs. He does some comedy. He does
some comedy.
blogging. He does product review for like deck boxes and card sleeves and stuff. He is great.
He goes by the professor.
The professor.
Yes, he used to be a college professor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Explains
give that guy a
great
look.
things.
He's
Yeah.
really good.
It's very fun stuff. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can't quickly grab the link and post it in there. Control C. That works. Yeah. Fun stuff.
Fun
And
stuff.
he will he does the booster box game too, where he'll buy a booster box and open each and like speed open, like he'll fast forward opening the packs and set aside any card that's worth more than $5 or higher to see if he can reach the total of what he spent on the box. And it's all just to prove to you buying booster packs for the sake of resale value is a losing game.
Yep.
The only reason to have booster packs, in his opinion, is for drafting. That's what booster packs are good for. And I know we're almost out of time, but Guy was explaining to me how now it's no longer just booster packs. They now have booster packs or draft
They're in
packs.
3 different versions.
Yeah, there's a bunch
now
of different
draft,
types of
set,
booster packs.
and collector.
Yeah.
Which actually Alex explained to me, and I'm glad he did, because when I've been going out to get Kamigawa sets, I have been just skipping the draft completely because I'm not interested in those cards. Because for me, it's about the art, and it always has been. And so I love the art cards, which in the set cards, we've got alternate art and stuff like that going on. So, and the alternate art for Kamigawa, they actually picked anime artists to do the alternate art. So they're Japanese anime artists in there doing these beautiful alternate art cards. So,
yeah, so if you're getting into Magic, one of the things I can say in their favor is their pre-constructed decks have gotten way better in quality and playability than they used to be.
Yes.
They're getting much better at making them competitive enough that they're fun to play and you don't just feel completely dominated in a game. So buying their pre-made decks is a good place to start too if you want to get into it. And then they sell some 2 sets too, where it's like the versus sets, but I think those are, from what I've heard, they're not so great. It's better to buy just 2 pre-built decks than to buy the starter pack deck, because I think the starter pack's only 30 cards a deck.
Yeah. There are, most stores will have free decks to give out to new players. The dual deck product was phased out several years ago, so you don't have to worry about that. And honestly, if you have any friends who are into Magic, almost all of us have extra decks that we're willing to just hand to people to get them to have someone to play with.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So that's cool. I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot of
Magic
today. It was a very magical show. But I think we are out of time. I'm pretty sure we're out of time.
Yep, we have 7 seconds left.
We have 7 seconds. So
now we have 3 seconds.
Anyway, okay. So that's all the time we've got for today. I've been Guy,
I've been Troy.
And I have been Alex.
and this is Geek Tank.
I got it.